Okay, time to spend some time with Jay Weidner, filmmaker, writer, all-round. He's one of the few people on the planet who actually understands the mind, or much of it, at least the records we have of it, through his films, of Stanley Kubrick. Jay's work in trying to make Stanley Kubrick accessible is unparalleled, and other things as well. He's got a new film out as well. I guess it's when's the release date on Shasta?
Probably looks like late October, sometime in the fall. Everything takes a lot longer than you think it does, but I have been exploring new distribution models, and I think I can say that for chumps like me who will never be accepted by the studio system.
Gosh, I wonder why not.
The future looks good because I don't need their systems anymore. So
well, that's been just an absolute chokehold on the industry for the better part of a century now. The distribution of films.
That's right, and it's pretty much for the creative business person who really understands how to dance around the big dudes. It's actually a very exciting time because you can keep all the money that you get because you're in control of the situation. And you may not make as much as the big films, but you make more than you would as an independent filmmaker. And that's really the key to success right now, because money is to film what paint is to art.
Isn't that the truth? And we've seen some pretty gross art lately. Wow.
Well, there's actually I highly recommend a film that's out right now. It's The Dark Knight Rises. It's actually a very good film, and it's all about what's going on in America right now between as the economy falls apart and the scrutiny on the 1% gets more and more intense. And Christopher Nolan masterfully, wends this, very, very up-to-date story into his Batman theme. It's actually the best of the three films, I think, and Hans Zimmer's score to that film is second to none. Probably the best score I've heard in a long time.
Really?
So it's actually a very interesting film. It's all about how a secret society does not like the order and the calm that Gotham City is living under. And so they send in the most psychopathic, murderous guy they can, this secret society, to basically occupy Gotham. Only he occupies it with by letting all the prisoners out of the prison. And this gang of criminals run by a secret society begins to take over Gotham with the federal government's consent. And they're terrorists, and they kill people, and it's very, very interesting. And there's Robespierre. They're seeing with Robespierre-like trials where rich people are taken, and they're kangaroo trials where they're really not even there to decide their guilt or innocence. They're there to decide which way they're going to die. And it's one rich person after another, and it's a very, very interesting film because Christopher Nolan is he's Irish, English, and he's American. He's a dual citizen, has been that way for his whole life. And I think I can say that this is really his homage or his to America, his sad song to what America has become and what America is about to go through, which is a very frightening thing, and it's portrayed in the movie. And I believe actually he's very close to the mark as to what is about to happen. And he's actually warning us in the movie about all of this. And it's actually, I don't want to praise it too much because it's still just a superhero film. But at the same time, Christopher Nolan is a very deep filmmaker. Inception was one of the most incredibly complicated screenplays I've ever seen on the screen. And Memento also was an incredibly intelligent film. And so he's applied his intelligence and his craft to the superhero genre, and he actually pulled off Thinking Man's film about what we're going through. What's really amazing about the film is he actually plays the entire beautifully. Actually, a little boy a cappella sings the Star Spangled Banner, and it's actually almost heartbreaking. He sings the entire first verse, and he plays the whole thing, which is like strange, with tattered flags, flying off of buildings, American flags. The whole thing is completely symbolic of like a super 9/11, super false flag.
Oh.
Yeah,
so it's not just a violence and gore fest. Although I've heard.
No, actually, I think it's the least violent of the three, but of course it's still very violent. But I think it's the least violent of the three.
What does that tell us about the tool of desensitization, the overexposure, the constant exposure, continual exposure to death and violence? Of course, people don't know the difference now between video game death and violence, movie screen death and violence, nightly news scenes of Syria, Libya, Afghanistan death and violence. It's all the same.
Yeah, it's blending together, and it's also blending into a dreamlike thing where the killers seem to move in a trance and don't know who they are and what's going on, and then you start. What's kind of been great about the recent killings in Wisconsin, nothing great about it, but what's been great about the coverage and the alternative press is how quickly, the rocks have been uncovered, catching the scurrying insects before they disappear into the darkness kind of thing, and especially the Colorado Batman shootings, which occurred exactly 13 years to the day of the release of Eyes Wide Shut by Stanley Kubrick, which is not an accident. I think Christopher Nolan is well aware of what I'm doing and is well aware that for a filmmaker, greatness lies in making films with things inside them a la Stanley Kubrick and what I've been finding. And in fact, it's interesting because I received an email about 2 months before Dark Knight Rises came out telling me that Christopher Nolan was a fan of my work and was a huge fan of Kubrick, and that he was working in post on the film and had seen it like 30 times because he was working on post, and that Christopher Nolan had buried a lot of subliminal stuff in there. And of course,
in the post-production process, he embedded things.
Yeah, it was an anonymous email, which is very interesting.
That is. Well,
especially in light of what happened on July 20th.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations on the compliment. He's obviously got your Kubrick disc and has looked at it and studied it. That's very interesting. Is he a relatively young man?
He's about 45. Yeah, so he's going to be around for a while. Yeah. Very, very, very. He's probably the greatest living filmmaker right now, I would say, as far as his craft, his ability to tell a story, and his writing.
Very good. All right, so what happened in Aurora?
Well, I mean, I don't know what happened, but I mean, when this guy, no one can actually ever say that this guy was shooting anyone, actually identify him, because he was covered head to toe, right? And he even had a neck guard. So no one could actually say. There's a first story that came in from the cops was that they saw him at the back of the theater and thought he was a SWAT team member. And that one of the cops noticed that his belt or something on him was not on right, and that's when they pulled the thing off and discovered this guy. And they said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm the Joker." Then a second story develops that they found him in his car acting strangely in the parking lot. And then we find out that one of the people in the audience says that someone received a phone call, went up to the exit door, looked like they jimmied it or did something to it, and then a couple of minutes later, Mr. Holmes came in through that door, fully armed, or a man came through that door, we should say, because no one can actually say. And so the thing is what is going on here, and the answer is that, of course, it's the usual psyops for gun control. I would imagine that's a big, huge thing on their agenda. So.
Sure.
But there's a lot more. And I think a lot of it, I think some of it may have to do with there was a multi-purpose to the plan for this guy, and there's a million questions about what happened that night and previously. But the upshot is that they were trying to, I believe, send a message. And one of the reasons that they're trying to send a message to guys like Christopher Nolan that you're not to mess around with putting subliminal shit in movies or anything like that.
Huh.
That's what I think.
Well, in this day and age, most everything is on the table. You just don't know.
Yeah.
All the possibilities are there, and things that we can't even imagine are there. That's the part that bothers me the most. And you and I and many of our listeners, are aware that we don't know.